So pulling out of the block, so obviously a Le Mans style start, Gary got into the car very, very quickly, and he battled to see the harness because of the neck brace.
He redlined it. And he smoked it all the way up the main straight.
Smoking the tires out the blocks.
We knew, boys, the Oaks are in for a race.
Nothing wrong.
But I'm thankful that we didn't get caught up in traffic and landed up in an accident at the first corner.
Let's check. Watch what happens down the straight there. Watch what happens down the straight.
That green BM was catching and overtaking time and time again. We overtook almost 17, 18 cars in 45 minutes and landed up in 7th position. Now, the car we built had 140 litres of fuel capacity, and we didn't expect to see Gary coming into the pits anytime soon. We all ran from the pit wall. We expected him to stay out there for at least 3 to 4 hours. And seeing the car pull into the pits early and not even come to where the driver change is supposed to be, but went up into the actual workshop area, scared us.
After about 40 or 50 minutes of driving, I've noticed a vibration coming from the center of the car, and what that was the center bearing of the prop shaft giving in. So we had to limp it back to the pits to see what the damage was and see how we were going to repair it.
Grab me a 13 spanner, a 13 tube socket, screw it 13, then take off the center bearing, then take off the prop.
I was so pumped up, it was hectic.
So when we got to the car, Gary was already lying underneath the car, getting his hands dirty. And we had the beginning stages of a prop shaft failure.
You'll see what's going to come out here now. We were doing very, very well. Car's got the pace, the turbo's on song. We've now gone and destroyed a rubber coupling on the prop, and obviously, as a result, has destroyed the center bearing. So we're trying to beg, borrow, and steal, and, well, we're trying to make a plan.
They found on the center bearing that whole section there had torn apart. So this piece is floating from that piece. It's supposed to be a solid unit.
After 2 weeks of working on this car, it's going amazing. The car is doing well, it's holding up to it. This is a problem. We got a lot of power that's trying to put through standard type BM stuff, so it's unforeseen. There's not lack of prep. The guys have done an amazing job. Like, this car is quick, so really, really happy. Just going to fix the prop, go and get some laps before it's dark.
So we then rushed around and we found bits of old cam belts and fan belts, and we wrapped them around the center bearing, some duct tape, and we put it back together.
So we turned the boost down.
More boost, less boost.
We got the car back onto track.
As the evening progressed, the car was going quite well. The turbo was working flawlessly. What a fantastic product, you know. All this, and it's a prototype turbo that really speaks wonders for the product. It's really, really good.
We didn't know what was really about to happen and what was about to hit us.
First time I get into the car, not one of us has done this trick. So everybody needs to just have a go while the sun is still up. Gary went out, Then Chris went out and the sun went down and my nerves just went. My nerves at that point in time, there was one saving grace. This car had serious brakes.
I didn't know how well Harry could drive. I didn't know what sort of experience he had around the track. We were obviously a little bit nervous, and we were just hoping and praying that the car stayed together. Harry got in the car. And lo and behold, he set faster lap times than all of us. So good on you, Harry. That was serious driving.
I think if I'd known the track, it would have been a lot easier, but it was a lot more fun.
Now we've got the car in for the 4th time, and we burst the boost pipe. So we've used duct tape. You know, those jokes come from somewhere. We've used duct tape, we've got the thing sorted. I've called in some faders from the guys at Turbo Direct. They're going to be bringing some pipes in for us and a bunch of other things, some thermal wrap and things, so it doesn't happen again.
When the silicon hose burst, it was under boost. So the turbocharger's working quite hard. It happened on the back straight. And that's 1,000-meter straight. It's about a kilometer back straight coming up next to the highway. And it was in probably 3rd or 4th gear. And the turbocharger was in full speed, wide open throttle. And when the silicon hose burst, obviously the turbocharger's at full speed. And all of a sudden there's a relief of pressure and the turbocharger's free to rotate. And it spiked. It hit 184,000 RPM. We've got a speed gauge in the car, a turbo speed gauge. And the gauge showed us 184,000 RPM, and that is serious, guys. You know, if at that speed, a lot of the turbochargers on the market today in the same class would burst. You'd have a compressor wheel burst, or you'd break a blade off on the turbine, the exhaust side, and that would result in a catastrophic turbocharger failure. The turbocharger would not last. Before the car went back out, we knew we were on borrowed time because the prop shaft spline had actually started to twist.
The cam belt disappeared.
That's not supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be straight. It's twisted the shaft. So once it starts to twist, all that's going to happen is it weakens the shaft and it's going to actually get worse and worse and worse, and it's actually going to break.
So we mustn't have more boost. We're trying to make a plan here so we can support the prop shaft where the center bearing runs.
We're going to make a brace to basically support the center bearing, where the center bearing was, so that the prop can be held still in the center. We've still got the bearing, but the actual casing around the bearing is destroyed, so we're making another one.
So Steve-O, being the magician and Zimbabwean that he is, he found bits of metal lying around and fabricated this world-class center bearing bracket. Amazing.
Right, so we've got a support, a carrier for that bearing. The bearing's intact. This is a new carrier. This is the other part that we're going to be putting on to mount this. Nothing we can do about that until later on today. Hopefully, we're going to just keep the boost down and see if we can't sort that out.
Steve gets here, he got in, he drove. All I can say is, wow, it was awesome.
Now we're talking, now we're talking.
Half an hour later, he came in for a change. We thought it was a driver change. It wasn't. We looked inside the car, and the gear lever was gone. It was missing. We looked at Steve. Steve looked at us. He took his helmet off, and it was, Steve, what happened? He says, I felt the prop shaft let go. When I looked down to put the car in neutral, the gear lever was gone. The whole thing, the entire gear lever and front section of the prop with the donut just went AWOL outside, out the side of the car. So taking with it the gearbox mount, center bearing, the front section of the prop shaft, as well as the rubber coupling, and damaging a piece of the gearbox that mounts the gearbox mount onto the gearbox itself. So it happened.
I was just trying to stick behind him so I could learn the track a bit, and the prop shaft came off.
Took the gear lever with it. So we need a gear lever and a prop shaft. There's no more fixes here. We need to replace this thing. If you don't get it, game over.
We cannot come back from this. We cannot come back from this.
Harry's son, Dylan, part of our pit crew,
He asked me, he said, Dad, what is wrong? I said, boy, it's done. We can't fix this. We out. It's over. He turned and he walked away.
literally went from car to car that is parked or jacked up into the pits and found another E36 BMW that had suffered a bearing failure in the engine. And he literally begged them if we could please use or scully some of the parts off their car so we could fix ours and get it back on the road. They agreed to allow us to do that. Myself, Steve, Sorrel, Harry, Dylan, all of us went down to the pits and climbed underneath that car and found that the center bearing was completely different.
We got a problem here, gentlemen.
Just trying to make a plan to piece these things together and see whether or not we're going to be able to do this or not.
The front section of the prop shaft was the only thing that we could actually use.
Obviously, a smaller motor needs a smaller prop.
So Dylan ran around to the vendors who had a stand at the race, and lo and behold, he had E36 gearbox, prop shaft, gear shift lever, and all the other bits and bobs that we needed.
Some parts that we need, gear lever and selectors and gearbox mount. There's the donut that I spoke to you about, the little flange on the other side, and then we're going to try and make this work with our shaft, piece it together with some donut parts off the other car that's ran bearings. So let's see what happens. Looking good.
We made it work, and surprisingly, the car lasted I think it was another probably 9 hours to go after that, after the modifications were made. So, job well done.
Harry, well done, but keep going. You've got the fastest lap so far for the day. It's 2 minutes 28.4. Yeehaw!
We were starting to do 3, 4, 5 seconds a lap quicker than some of the fastest oaks.
He goes out and sets a massive lap. It was really, really awesome.
That car was performing. I was having so much fun.
We were all jumping around and we were so happy. And one of the other teams that was standing next to us at the pit wall told us that lap's not going to count unless it's slower than your qualifying time. We were, come again? And at that point did we only realize that we needed to slow the pace down.
On the corner.
Gary got into the car. He went out for about a 2.5 hour stint. Through his driving stint, he came in with an exhaust dragging on the ground, quickly into the pits, cooled everything down, changed the coolant, took the entire exhaust off except for the downpipe, and put the guys back on track again. We didn't have time to fix that.
So one of the brackets that was holding the exhaust on, the rear section of the exhaust, had broken.
We went out without an exhaust. There was no exhaust. It's literally the pipe that connects to the turbocharger's outlet facing down underneath the car. That's the only part of the exhaust that was left.
We should be fine. There's not going to be any issues there, but it's probably going to be a little bit louder than it was. Let's go to the track and find out.
Taking off the exhaust is essentially adding or aiding in power, because the best exhaust for a turbo car is no exhaust at all.
Okay guys, so last half an hour of the 24-hour, Gary started the race, Gary's going to finish the race.
Toward the end of the race, we were standing right next to the little platform where the checkered flag would be waved. And we heard the guys counting down, okay, 2 more minutes, 1 more minute, and then we started seeing, okay, where's Gary, where's Gary? Anyway, so now we're preparing, the camera guys are there, we're trying to get some footage, we're waiting for Gary to come across the line, and all the other cars were crossing the line, and the cheering started, and obviously people knew who had won and who hadn't, and we lost sight of the car. We didn't know where the car was, and the car was standing on the side of the track at the back straight with the bonnet open. And all the drivers and pit crew pushed the car 450 meters. It literally stopped 450 meters from the finish line, and we ran out of fuel. We had literally run out of fuel 450 meters before the finish line. So we pushed the car across the line, and we made it. The car lasted a 24-hour race. Thank you, Gary. Thanks to your team. Thanks to everybody involved. In my eyes and in our eyes, I think I speak for everybody, this is a 1,000% success. All of us took a knee and thanked the Lord for keeping us safe. It's a serious, serious achievement. And, you know, yes, the turbocharger is essentially the one on trial here. And it survived the trial by fire. But you know what? There's humans and our team behind this project. And there was a lot of work, one hell of a lot of work that went into getting this car built, firstly on time and to the level that we needed it built to be able to be reliable, to last. Guys, what an awesome race, what a great experience. Let's get to the teardown of the turbocharger you just saw running in this grueling 24-hour torture test. I'm going to open this turbo up and inspect every component inside, take some measurements, and check and verify whether or not this turbocharger can be reassembled, rebalanced, and if it's good for use again, and the most important, if it's good enough for me to put my name on it. obviously we now have the bearing cartridge. Bearing cartridge comes out. There's no filings or anything that we need to be concerned about there. Yes, it's discolored. All bearing cartridges discolor, even on street use, low boost, normal operation, and obviously the drag racing, drifting, circuit racing, and any other application that you expose the bearing cartridge to will always cause it to discolor. The metal cage, we use a specific material for the cage, is intact. It's in good condition. Split seal ring is in perfect condition. And there's no excessive play in either direction. I'm really happy. I'm going to disassemble the cartridge upstairs and we're going to have a look at the ball grooves under the microscope just to verify that there's no pitting and no skidding of the balls. And that we'll do on camera with a microscope shortly. I'm inspecting a specific part of the cartridge. I'm looking for specific telltale signs in the sealing system and its operation and performance, and I am more than happy. That information we're not going to go into. Something really interesting is when you start getting to grinds versus machining. That is what a grind looks like. And as I move across to the next part, this is what it looks like when a surface is machined. You see those lines? Let me just turn this where there's no oil. Those lines are striations. That's what a machined surface looks like, and that's what a ground surface looks like. A lot of the time people are inspired by various things. I'm inspired by my children and how they see me as a parent, and I want to just mention that Kaylee and Kayla Brits are my inspiration for everything I do.